Wednesday, January the 4th. Before I get into the fishing report, Sportsman Factory Outlet on January 19th, 20th, and 21st, which is a Thursday, Friday, and a Saturday, is going to have a special deal over there. It's going to be a meet and greet with the pros. They're going to have several different BASS elite anglers there, FLW anglers, local anglers, doing little seminars and hanging out and meeting with the public. And it's going to be like Dion Hibden's going to be there, James Watson, Casey Scanlon, Greg Bohannon. You're going to have your All-American champion Marcus Sequoia from Lake of the Ozarks. And there's going to be some local pros there, Brent Aljo, Bobby Albert. There's going to be some guys there from Pro Guide Batteries, so if you got any questions on batteries, they'll help you answer them. There's not only going to be bass fishing, there's going to be some guys doing some deals on some crappie fishing, like the crappie fishing guru, Rick Flint, and Terry Blankenship's going to be there talking about the area lakes, how to catch crappie, and these other guys are going to be talking about how to catch bass on all these area lakes. And it's going to be a real informative deal. Should be a fun deal. But I'll have more information on it probably this Friday, and I will be posting it on Table Rock Lake Fishing as far as the schedule of what pros are going to be there when, what days they're going to be there, and everything that's going on. But it's going to be a whole bunch of special deals on different product in the store for 3 days, so it ought to be a real fun deal to attend. Like I say, next week I'll have a little more information about it, and I'll also post the flyer on Table Rock Lake Fishing as soon as I receive it. But as far as the lake level is about the same as it's been for the past 3 weeks. It's right about 907 and a half. Hadn't been any water coming in or any water coming out to speak of. They've been doing very little generation. And water temperature depends where you're at. It's anywhere from, it's cooling down a little bit, 48, 49 degrees to the further up in the river arms you go, the colder it gets. Fishing's been really good. There's been a lot of different ways to catch them. I mean, you can catch fish from, 4 or 5 feet out to 65 to 70 feet. As far as a lot of them deep fish, I think last week I mentioned I had kind of lost a lot of those big schools of Kentuckys that I was catching in the 35 to 40 foot range. Well, I've relocated some of those, and they've gone out there real deep, anywhere from 55, some of them as deep as 70 feet, but been catching a lot of them in the 60, 65 foot range, right on the bottom or just a few feet off. And a lot of that have been on the main lake gravel flat points. Been catching them on white jig and spoons, ice fishing jigs, the Rapala ice fishing jig, and also some grubs and little swim baits. Now the grubs, a lot of the grubs I'm throwing either on a 1/4 ounce or 3/8 ounce head, and this is just a smoke with the black flake. And it doesn't matter whether it's an XPS, Yamamoto, or Chompers. All brands seem to be working. This is kind of a salt and pepper. And then, little swim baits will work as well. Now, I'm using these either on a drop shot or on a little 1/4 ounce jig head and vertical fishing. The white spoons, ice fishing jigs, kind of working in the same areas. Now, the largemouth we've been catching deep, they're getting ganged up pretty good in the centers of these deep creeks. You got to spend a little bit of time idling around, but you want to look for some treetops. The bottom may be anywhere from 50 to 100 foot, but you want to look for trees that are topping out in that 30 to 40 foot range. Sometimes you'll actually see the fish. A lot of times you got to drop your bait down into the tree or just above the tree, and you'll see them come out. But most of them have been largemouths that have been in the centers of the creeks. And that'll kind of change from day to day, but usually once you find a creek that's got them, they'll have them in the same area. You might have to move around a couple hundred yards from one day to the next, but one thing about this time of the year, whether they're out on the gravel flats or in the center of the creeks, the fish will be pretty consistent, as far as the areas. They're not moving a whole lot. And you start keeping an eye out for your birds. If you see a bunch of loons, diving down, or a gull circling above the loons, go over and check that area out, because more than likely you're going to find a good group of fish. If nothing else, you're going to find a bunch of shad. just keep following the shad around and find a fish. But there's also, a pretty decent shallow bite going on too. I've been catching them on a mega bass jerkbait and a Spro big stick. And shad colors seem to be working about the best. And I'm catching some of these fish on secondary points around timber, but I seem to be catching more fish off of rock transitions where the fish are relating more to big ledge rock where it kind of turns into gravel, especially if you got a little bit of wind. It's not working as well if I don't have any wind, but if you got some wind, kind of chase the wind around when you get it on the right type of rock combination on a point, or and I don't seem to be getting too many bites past the points or past the cuts, about 100 feet, 150 feet each side of the point. I've tried to fish down further, but they seem to be keyed in on the points, and I'm finding them kind of grouped up. I'm usually getting 2 to 4 bites per area when I get a bite. Sometimes I may have to fish 4 or 5 points, but when you find them, you'll get a couple bites. Another bait that's still working, is like the wiggle wart, the rock crawler. The one I've been throwing for the last 2 to 3 weeks has been this Profound Outdoors. It looks just like a wiggle wart, a little bit wider bait, goes a little bit deeper, got a tungsten rattle inside of it, but working real well for me. And I think, like I say, a wiggle wart, rock crawler, a Series 3 Strike King, anything in the crawdad pattern will work. Most of these fish seem to be about 5 to about 12, 15 foot deep. And if you want to get on some docks, I've been catching a few fish on docks. Now that bite been a lot slower. I mean, you got to fish the bait real slow. I'm throwing a little 5/16 or 3/8 ounce finesse jig with like a Strike King baby rage craw, or even like a Zoom critter craw for a trailer. You kind of want something like the critter craw is working real good. Doesn't have a lot of leg action. It's a real subtle bait. And I'm taking, let's see if I got one here. I'm taking a lot of the skirts. I don't have one right there, but trying to trim it down kind of like a finesse jig where the skirt isn't making as much movement in the water. When the water's real cold, it seems like the fish want something that's a little bit more subtle and slower. But the docks I've been getting bit on is anywhere from about 10 to 20 foot deep in around the docks, and especially if there's some brush. But looks like that water is going to cool down some more. We got a pretty cold week ahead of us. But if the weather looks like it's going to get above freezing, wind ain't going to be too bad. It's really a good time to get out there fishing, especially if you want to do some deep fishing, play with your electronics and learn how to use them to find these fish, watch your baits as you're trying to catch the fish. It's a real fun deal to do. Like I said, I think the jerkbait's going to get a little bit better. Crankbait, as the water gets a little colder, I think a guy can still catch him on it, but he's going to have to slow it way down. So, till next week, good luck, good fishing, and I'll have some more information on the meet and greet with the pros at Sportsman Factory Outlet for you. Probably by this weekend, if not on my next fishing report next Wednesday.